The cold soda cascaded down 12-year-old Marcus Johnson's face, drenching his hair and soaking into his school uniform. The entire diner fell silent. Forks stopped mid-air. Conversations died. Every eye in Rosie's diner turned toward the booth where Marcus sat frozen, chocolate milkshake dripping from his tight curls onto his shoulders. Officer Danny Reeves stood over the boy, his meaty hand still gripping the empty glass, a cruel smirk plastered across his face. His police badge caught the fluorescent light, gleaming with an authority he clearly believed made him untouchable. "That'll teach you to speak when spoken to, boy," Reeves said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Next time a police officer asks you a question, you answer with respect." Marcus's hands trembled as sticky liquid dripped onto the red vinyl seat. His eyes burned with humiliation, but he refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of everyone. The other diners looked away quickly, returning to their meals with uncomfortable urgency. Nobody wanted trouble with a cop. What Officer Reeves didn't know, what he couldn't possibly have known, was that the boy's mother wasn't just any concerned parent. Special Agent Nicole Johnson had spent 15 years with the FBI's Civil Rights Division, and she'd built her career on taking down corrupt officials who believed their badges placed them above the law. But let me take you back to where this all began, 3 hours earlier, when Marcus's day had started like any other ordinary Tuesday. Marcus had always been a good kid, straight-A student at Lincoln Middle School, captain of the debate team, and the kind of son who still kissed his mother goodbye every morning before catching the bus. That Tuesday morning, Nicole had been rushing to get ready for an important briefing at the FBI field office in downtown Chicago. "Baby, there's $20 on the counter," she'd called from her bedroom, fastening her service weapon to her hip. The milkshake had come down fast, and now Marcus sat there, humiliated and soaking wet, while Officer Reeves towered over him with that satisfied smirk. The diner remained eerily quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator behind the counter. "I asked you a simple question," Reeves continued, his voice dripping with false authority. "When a police officer speaks to you, you answer immediately. You don't sit there thinking up lies." Marcus's jaw clenched. His mother had taught him how to handle situations like this. Stay calm. Be respectful. Document everything. Survive first, seek justice later. But the rage building in his chest made it hard to remember those lessons. "I wasn't lying, sir," Marcus said quietly, his voice barely steady. "My mother gave me money for dinner." Reeves leaned down, his face inches from Marcus's. His breath smelled like coffee and cigarettes. "Your mother, right? What does she do, this mother of yours? Let me guess. She's probably at home living off government checks while you're out here stealing." "She's not," Marcus started but caught himself. His mother had warned him never to reveal her profession unnecessarily. Could put her cases at risk, put them both in danger. But the words hung in his throat, desperate to defend her. Miss Rosie finally appeared from the kitchen, a small black woman in her 60s who'd run the diner for 30 years. Her face was tight with worry as she approached the booth, wiping her hands on her apron. "Officer Reeves," she said carefully, her voice respectful but firm. "That's Marcus Johnson. He's a good boy. Comes in here all the time. There's no trouble here." Reeves straightened up, turning his glare on Miss Rosie. "I'll decide if there's trouble or not. How do you know this kid isn't using stolen money?" Officer Reeves stared at the phone like it might bite him. For the first time since he'd walked into the diner, uncertainty flickered across his face. But his pride, that dangerous combination of ego and badge, quickly smothered any sense of caution. "I don't take orders from voices on a phone," he said, waving Miss Rosie away. "I'm conducting official police business here. You can talk to my supervisor if you have a complaint." Through the speaker, Nicole's voice cut through the diner like a blade. "Officer, this is Special Agent Nicole Johnson with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The child you're currently harassing is my son. I'm going to ask you one time to step away from him, and then I'm going to ask you to wait exactly where you are until I arrive. Do you understand?" The diner had gone completely silent. Even the kitchen sounds had stopped. Every person in that room was holding their breath, watching this confrontation unfold. Reeves's face had gone from smug to red. FBI? Yeah, right. Lady, I don't know what kind of game you're playing. Badge number 4-7-2-3. Nicole's voice came back, calm and precise. Officer Daniel James Reeves. 8 years with Chicago PD. Currently assigned to the 15th District. Married to Patricia Reeves. 2 children. Daniel Jr., age 9, and Emma, age 6. You live at 2847 Oakmont Avenue. Should I continue? Or would you like to keep pretending you don't know who I am? The color drained from Reeves's face. Marcus watched the transformation. The way his mother's words stripped away the officer's bravado layer by layer. This was the FBI agent talking now, not the mom who made pancakes on Sunday mornings. How did you? Reeves stammered. I'm 7 minutes away. Nicole continued, her voice deadly calm. If you leave that diner, if you touch my son again, if you do anything except stand there and wait for me, I will make it my personal mission to ensure that every complaint ever filed against you, an officer, I already know there are 11 of them, gets a federal review. Are we clear? Reeves opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. This is a misunderstanding. I was just 7 minutes, Officer Reeves. I'm sure you can count that high. The line went dead. The silence in the diner stretched for what felt like an eternity. Marcus remained frozen in his booth, milkshake still dripping from his hair onto his shoulders. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Part of him felt relief that his mother knew what was happening. Another part felt terrified about what came next. Reeves stood there, his hand still hovering near his belt, his face cycling through emotions. Anger, fear, calculation. Marcus could see him trying to figure out his next move, weighing his options. Run? Stay? Try to control the narrative. Miss Rosie broke the silence. There's paper towels in the bathroom, baby, she said softly to Marcus. Go clean yourself up. Marcus looked at Officer Reeves, waiting for permission he shouldn't have needed. The officer gave a curt nod, and Marcus slid out of the booth carefully, his shoes squelching with spilled milkshake. As he walked toward the bathroom, he felt every eye in the diner following him. In the bathroom, Marcus stared at his reflection in the mirror. Chocolate milkshake covered his hair, his face, his white school shirt. He looked like he'd been through a war. And in a way, he had. This was the war his mother had warned him about, the one where the battlefield was everyday life and the uniform of the enemy could be a badge. He grabbed paper towels and started cleaning himself up, his hands still shaking. Through the thin bathroom door, Nicole Johnson was not a tall woman, just 5'6", but when she walked through that diner door, she seemed to fill the entire space. She wore a charcoal gray pantsuit, her FBI credentials clipped to her belt, and her dark eyes swept the room with the precision of someone trained to assess threats in seconds. Those eyes found Marcus first. Her son, sitting alone in a booth, his shirt soaked and stained, his face a mask of controlled emotion. Something flickered across her features. A mother's pain, quickly buried beneath professional steel. Then her gaze shifted to Officer Reeves, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Officer Reeves, she said, her voice carrying the same deadly calm it had held on the phone. She walked toward him with measured steps, her hand resting casually near her own badge. I'm Special Agent Nicole Johnson. I believe you've met my son. Reeves straightened, trying to reclaim some of his earlier authority. Agent Johnson, look, there's been a misunderstanding here. You were just what? Nicole interrupted, stopping a few feet away from him. You were just interrogating a 12-year-old child? You were just demanding to see money that belonged to him? You were just pouring a milkshake on his head. She paused, letting each question hang in the air. Which part am I misunderstanding, officer? That's not. I had reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion of what, exactly? Nicole's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. Suspicion that a black child in a diner might be eating a meal? Suspicion that he might have money his mother gave him? Tell me, Officer Reeves, what specific crime did you suspect my son of committing? Reeves's jaw worked. He was acting suspicious. He hesitated when I asked him questions. He hesitated. Nicole repeated the words slowly, as if tasting them. A 12-year-old boy hesitated when a police officer randomly interrogated him about eating dinner, and that gave you reasonable suspicion to assault him? It wasn't assault. You poured a beverage on a child's head. That's assault. And in front of witnesses. Nicole gestured to the diner around them. Multiple witnesses, some of whom, I notice, were recording the incident. The young Hispanic man at the counter nodded slowly, his phone still in his hand. Reeves's face flushed red again. Now listen here, Agent Johnson. I don't care what fancy title you have. Reeves opened his mouth, then closed it again. There was no good answer to that question, and he knew it. That's what I thought, Nicole said softly. Miss Rosie, do you still have your security camera footage? From behind the counter, Miss Rosie nodded. Everything's recorded, honey. I can get you a copy right now. Please do. Officer Reeves, you're going to wait right here while I check on my son. Then you and I are going to have a longer conversation. Nicole finally turned away from the officer and walked to Marcus's booth. Her professional mask slipped for just a moment as she sat down beside him, her hand gently touching his damp shoulder. You okay, baby? She asked quietly, her voice completely different now, soft, maternal, full of concern. Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. Now that his mother was here, now that he was safe, the tears he'd been holding back threatened to spill. Did he hurt you? Besides the milkshake? No, ma'am. Nicole's jaw tightened. She pulled a clean handkerchief from her pocket and gently wiped a spot of chocolate from Marcus's cheek. I'm so proud of you. You stayed calm. You did everything right. I wanted to tell him who you were, Marcus whispered. Sergeant Martinez was a stocky man in his late 40s with gray touching his temples and the kind of tired eyes that suggested he'd seen too much in his career. He glanced at Marcus, then at Officer Reeves, then back at Nicole. His expression told the whole story. He knew exactly what had happened here. Sergeant, Nicole said, her tone professional but firm. Your officer assaulted my 12-year-old son. Without cause, without justification, and in full view of multiple witnesses. I've already filed a formal complaint, and I expect a full investigation. Martinez nodded slowly. Reeves, is this true? Officer Reeves shifted his weight. His earlier confidence completely evaporated. Sergeant, I was just trying to. Is it true? Martinez cut him off. Did you pour something on this kid? The silence stretched. Finally, Reeves nodded. There was a misunderstanding. You thought wrong, Martinez said flatly. He turned to Nicole. Agent Johnson, I apologize on behalf of the Chicago Police Department. This is unacceptable behavior, and it will be addressed. Reeves, give me your incident report. Now. But Sarge. Now, Officer Reeves. Martinez's voice carried the weight of authority that came from years of earning respect rather than demanding it. And then you're going to go sit in the patrol car while I sort this out. Reeves looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Martinez's expression stopped him. He pulled out his notepad with shaking hands and started writing, his pen scratching across the paper in the silent diner. Marcus watched the whole scene unfold, still sitting in his booth. This wasn't how he'd imagined his Tuesday afternoon going. He'd thought he'd eat his burger, finish his homework, and go home to tell his mom about his debate team practice. Instead, he'd been humiliated, assaulted, and was now watching his mother dismantle a police officer's career piece by piece. Nicole sat down across from Marcus again, her attention shifting between him and the officers. The young woman who'd been recording earlier approached. Reeves's voice cracked. For spilling a drink? For deprivation of rights under color of law, Nicole said coldly. Title 18 U.S. Code Section 242. It's a federal crime for law enforcement officers to willfully violate someone's constitutional rights. And Officer Reeves, what you did to my son was assault a minor based on racial discrimination while acting under authority of your badge. That's exactly the kind of behavior that statute was designed to address. The color drained from Reeves's face. Federal charges meant federal court, federal prosecutors, federal prison if convicted. It meant his career was over no matter what happened. Agent Johnson, Martinez said quietly, I understand you're angry, any parent would be, but maybe we can resolve this without going federal. Let our system work. Nicole turned to look at him, and her expression was hard. Your system has failed 7 times in 14 months, Sergeant. 7 people trusted your system to protect them from Officer Reeves, and your system dismissed their complaints. Why should I trust it now? Martinez had no answer for that. Nicole gently took Marcus by the shoulder. Come on, baby. Let's go home. As they walked toward the door, Marcus heard Reeves mutter something under his breath. His mother must have heard it too, because she stopped and turned around slowly. Officer Reeves? Did you have something to say? Reeves looked at the floor. No, ma'am. That evening, their small but comfortable apartment in the South Side felt different to Marcus. The familiar sounds, the hum of the refrigerator, the traffic outside, the neighbor's muffled television, all seemed louder somehow. He sat at the kitchen table in fresh clothes, his homework still incomplete, watching his mother work. Nicole had transformed their dining room into a command center. Her laptop was open, multiple folders spread across the table, her phone constantly buzzing with incoming messages. She changed out of her work suit into jeans and a Northwestern University sweatshirt, but her focus remained razor-sharp. Mom, Marcus said after a long silence, you don't have to do all this. I'm okay. Nicole looked up from her laptop, her eyes softening. Baby, this isn't just about you being okay. This is about making sure Officer Reeves can't do this to someone else's child. Someone whose mother doesn't have the resources or the knowledge to fight back. She was right, and Marcus knew it. He thought about those 7 other complaints. 7 other people who'd been mistreated. How many of them had been kids like him? How many had just accepted the humiliation because they didn't know what else to do? Tell me about those other complaints, Marcus said. The 7 people who reported him before. Nicole hesitated, then seemed to decide he deserved to know. I can't give you all the details, but I made some calls. 3 were traffic stops where Officer Reeves used excessive force during routine violations. 2 were stop-and-frisk incidents in this neighborhood where he searched people without proper cause. 1 was a domestic disturbance call where he arrested the victim instead of the perpetrator. And 1 was a teenager, 16 years old, who was walking home from basketball practice and got thrown against a wall because Reeves claimed he matched a description. Marcus felt his chest tighten. What happened to them? The complaints were investigated by internal affairs. In each case, it came down to the officer's word against the citizen's word. Reeves claimed he followed procedure. His fellow officers backed him up. The complainants couldn't afford lawyers or were too scared to push further. So the complaints were marked unfounded and filed away. That's not fair. No, it's not. But that's how the system works sometimes. It's designed to protect officers, even when they don't deserve protection. Nicole's expression hardened. But this time is different. This time he messed with someone who knows exactly how to navigate that system. And more importantly, we have something those other victims didn't have. What? Clear video evidence. Multiple witnesses willing to testify. And a federal agent who won't be intimidated or bought off. She reached across the table and squeezed Marcus's hand. We're going to win this, baby. Not just for you, but for everyone who came before you. Marcus's phone buzzed. It was a text from his best friend, Jamal. Yo, my cousin said she saw a video of you at Rosie's. What happened? He showed his mother the message. Nicole sighed. It's already spreading. That's good and bad. Good because it means there's public pressure for accountability. Bad because people are going to talk about me, Marcus finished. Yes. Are you okay with that? Marcus thought about it. Tomorrow at school everyone would know. Some kids would be supportive. Others might tease him for snitching on a cop. Some would be scared that associating with him might bring police attention to their own families. But when he thought about that 16-year-old basketball player thrown against a wall, or the 7 other victims who'd been dismissed and ignored? His answer became clear. I'm okay with it, he said. If it helps, can he do that? He can try. And unfortunately, it might work with some people. There are communities in this city who will automatically side with the police officer over the black kid, no matter what the evidence shows. Nicole's jaw set. But Martinez called to warn me about something else. Reeves has been drinking and he's angry. Really angry. Martinez wanted me to know that we should be careful. Careful? Marcus's voice rose. Is he threatening us? Martinez didn't say that directly, but reading between the lines, yes. Reeves is talking about how he knows where we live, how he's seen Marcus around the neighborhood, how this isn't over. Nicole stood up and walked to the window, checking the street below. Martinez is worried Reeves might do something stupid. For the first time that day, Marcus felt genuine fear. This wasn't about humiliation anymore. This was about safety. Their safety. Nicole must have seen the fear on his face because she came over and knelt beside his chair. Listen to me. We're going to be fine. I'm going to call some colleagues right now and make sure we have security. And tomorrow I'm filing for a restraining order. Reeves isn't going to come anywhere near us. But what if? No what ifs, Nicole said firmly. I've dealt with men like Danny Reeves my entire career. They're bullies. They rely on intimidation and fear. But when someone stands up to them, when someone holds them accountable, they crumble. Reeves is scared right now, and scared men make threats. But he's not going to do anything that would guarantee him federal prison time. She pulled out her phone and made another call, this time to the FBI field office. Within minutes, she'd arranged for increased patrol in their neighborhood and had given their address to the duty officer. Marcus tried to focus on his homework, but the numbers swam before his eyes. Everything had escalated so fast. This morning, his biggest worry had been a debate team presentation. Now he was worried about a police officer showing up at their door. Mom, he said quietly. I'm sorry. Nicole looked up sharply. Sorry for what? For causing all this trouble. If I had just answered his questions faster, or if I'd... Stop right there. Nicole interrupted, her voice sharp. Marcus, you listen to me. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. You were eating a meal in a public restaurant. That's all. Everything that happened after that was Officer Reeves's choice. His actions. His responsibility. You do not apologize for being the victim of someone else's prejudice and abuse of power. Do you understand me? Marcus nodded, but the guilt still sat heavy in his chest. I mean it, Marcus. One of the most insidious things about injustice is that it makes victims feel responsible for their own victimization. Society tells us that if we just behave a certain way, if we just speak respectfully enough, if we just comply enough, then we'll be safe. But that's a lie. Because the problem isn't our behavior. It's the behavior of people like Reeves who see our skin color as justification for suspicion. She pulled him into a hug, fierce and protective. You could have been the most polite, compliant kid in the world, and Reeves still would have found a reason to target you. Because this was never about you, baby. It was always about him and his prejudices. Marcus held onto his mother, drawing strength from her certainty. She'd spent 15 years fighting battles like this. She knew the terrain. She knew the enemy. And most importantly, she knew how to win. What happens next? He asked. Nicole pulled back, her expression determined. Next, we fight. Tomorrow, I'm taking you to school personally. 3 months later, Marcus walked into Rosie's diner with his head held high. The bell chimed above the door, and Miss Rosie looked up from behind the counter, her face breaking into a warm smile. Well, look who's here. My favorite customer. She came around the counter and pulled Marcus into a quick hug. The usual? Yes, ma'am, Marcus said, sliding into his booth by the window, the same booth where everything had changed. The diner looked exactly the same, but everything else had transformed. The booth that once held the worst moment of Marcus's young life had become something different now, a reminder not of humiliation, but of standing up for what was right. Miss Rosie brought over his cheeseburger and a fresh chocolate milkshake, setting them down with a knowing look. Your mama working late again? FBI stuff, Marcus said with a small smile. Always FBI stuff. What Marcus didn't say, what everyone in the neighborhood now knew, was that his mother had become something of a local hero over the past 3 months. The case against Officer Danny Reeves had grown far beyond a single incident at a diner. Nicole had done exactly what she'd promised. She tracked down all 7 previous complainants against Reeves. With FBI resources and protection, 5 of them agreed to provide detailed testimony about their experiences. The pattern that emerged was devastating. Over 4 years, Reeves had systematically targeted young Black and Hispanic men in the neighborhood, using his badge as a weapon to intimidate, harass, and assault. The 16-year-old basketball player, a kid named DeMarcus Wilson, had been particularly brave. He'd stood in front of a review board and described how Reeves had slammed him against a brick wall so hard it left bruises that lasted for weeks. All because he'd been walking home with his gym bag. His crime? Looking suspicious in his own neighborhood. The video from the diner had gone viral, just as Nicole had predicted. But rather than sparking the usual outrage cycle that burned hot and faded fast, something different had happened. The Chicago Tribune had picked up the story. Then the Sun-Times. Then CNN. The story became not just about one bad cop, but about a broken system that protected officers like Reeves while ignoring their victims. The pressure had been enormous. Community organizations rallied. Legal advocacy groups filed motions. And through it all, Nicole Johnson had been the steady hand guiding the investigation, building a case that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. 2 weeks ago, the U.S. Attorney's Office had announced federal charges against Officer Danny Reeves. Deprivation of rights under color of law, assault, and civil rights violations. He'd been fired from the Chicago Police Department. His pension was under review, and he was facing up to 10 years in federal prison. But the story didn't end with Reeves. The investigation had exposed deeper problems in the 15th District. Sergeant Martinez, to his credit, had cooperated fully with the investigation. He'd admitted that complaints against Reeves had been minimized or dismissed, and he'd provided internal documents that showed a pattern of protecting problematic officers. As a result, the entire district was now under federal oversight, with new protocols for handling civilian complaints. Marcus took a bite of his burger, savoring the familiar taste. Through the window, he could see the neighborhood going about its evening routine. Mrs. Chun closing up her grocery store. Mr. Abdullah walking his dog. Kids playing basketball at the park across the street. This was his neighborhood. He belonged here, and nobody, no officer, no bully, no one, could make him feel otherwise ever again. The door chimed, and Marcus looked up to see his mother walking in, still in her work clothes but with tired satisfaction in her eyes. She slid into the booth across from him. "Thought I might find you here," Nicole said, stealing one of his fries. "How was court?" Marcus asked. Nicole's smile was answer enough. Reeves's lawyer tried to get the case dismissed. The judge denied the motion. "We're going to trial in 6 weeks. Are you worried?" "Not even a little bit," Nicole said confidently, because people in this community demanded change and wouldn't settle for empty promises. Nicole reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "Individual justice is important, but systemic change, that's how we make sure this doesn't keep happening." Marcus understood now what his mother had been trying to teach him his whole life. Justice wasn't just about punishing bad people. It was about building systems that prevented harm in the first place. It was about creating a world where a kid could eat a burger in peace without fear, where a badge meant protection instead of threat, where skin color didn't determine how you were treated by those in power. The door chimed again, and this time several teenagers walked in, kids Marcus recognized from school. They saw him and immediately came over, all talking at once. "Marcus, did you hear? My cousin said Reeves is definitely going to prison. Yo, Mr. Henderson showed your video in civics class today, talking about civil rights. My mom said your mom is like a real-life superhero." Marcus felt his face heat up, but he couldn't help smiling. His mother laughed and stood up, giving him space to talk with his friends. As Nicole walked to the counter to chat with Miss Rosie, she looked back at her son, surrounded by peers who saw him not as a victim but as someone who'd stood up for justice. She thought about that terrible day 3 months ago, about the rage and fear she'd felt seeing Marcus humiliated and hurt. She thought about Officer Reeves's smug face, his absolute certainty that his badge made him untouchable. He'd been wrong. So fundamentally, completely wrong. Because badge or no badge, power without accountability was just tyranny. And tyranny, Nicole had learned over 15 years of fighting it, always eventually fell to truth. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from the U.S. attorney. Just got word, 2 more officers from the 15th district are being investigated based on the protocols we put in place. The system is working. Nicole smiled and typed back, "That's what accountability looks like." She glanced around Rosie's diner, at Marcus laughing with his friends, at Miss Rosie serving customers with her warm smile, at the diverse mix of people sharing a meal together. This was what she fought for. Not just punishment for the guilty, but protection for the innocent. Not just individual justice, but systemic change that made communities safer for everyone. The road ahead was still long. Officer Reeves's trial would be difficult. There would be appeals, pushback, people who claimed she was anti-police or stirring up trouble. But Nicole had faced worse. She'd faced officers who thought their badges made them gods. She'd faced systems designed to protect the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. She'd faced a world that told her son he didn't belong in a simple diner. And she'd won. Not completely, not permanently, justice was always a work in progress. But she'd won enough to matter, enough to change lives, enough to show her son and every other kid in this neighborhood that they mattered, that their dignity mattered, that their rights mattered. Marcus caught her eye from across the diner and waved. She waved back, her heart full. 3 months ago, Officer Danny Reeves had poured a drink on a black boy's head at a diner, unaware that his mother was an FBI agent. It was meant to be an act of casual cruelty, the kind that happened every day to people who had no power to fight back. But Danny Reeves had made one critical mistake. He'd assumed that because Marcus was young and black